V42 is finally here, and you lost all of your old cards and have all these new ones. But did you really? We're going to take a look at some of the old cards that have actually been moved forward, or at least have similar equivalents now in V42, starting right now. What is going on? I am Shadow, and if this is your first time here, be sure to hit that subscribe button and the bell notification icon so you can stay up to date with all the latest Paragon V42 and onward information. Also, leave me a comment below. Let me know what you think about V42, what you think about the cards, and what you're hoping to see maybe balanced or changed. Now, the card system has been completely reworked, and we knew this was coming. I'm not sure some people knew it was going to be quite as drastic of a change as it was, but it is a complete overhaul of the cards and deck building system. Now, there's a lot of positivity with it. I personally like it. I enjoy it, but I know there's a lot of negativity around this as well. And a lot of people had cards and decks that they were just used to, and they knew and loved these cards, and they're upset now that it's gone. But in this video, I hope to show you that they really aren't all gone. There's a lot of the old cards that have just been transitioned over into either gems or new cards under different names, or maybe, multiple cards that provide the same effects that have just been slightly tweaked a little bit. So we're going to look at that in this video. The cards are in alphabetical order, so if you're looking for a specific card, you can kind of skip ahead in the video to wherever you should be able to tell it would fall and find it that way. Also, I apologize for the old art on these cards. Believe it or not, it's very hard to find images of what the cards look like right before the update. Most of these databases have already been wiped clean of anything other than V42, so bear with me there. I just had to use whatever I could find for these old cards. But let's get right in and let's take a look at what our old V41 and before cards have turned into now in V42. Okay, the first card we're looking at is Armavore, and in V42, instead of Armavore, you have Mana Generator. It is an agility attribute gem that falls into the 13th slot, and it restores 7 mana whenever you land a basic attack. So that is pretty much Armavore in V42. Okay, now what about Ash of the Witch? In V42, we have Stagnate Dominion, and now this is not an exact copy of Ash of the Witch. It is a little different, but it still does ability slow. Ability damage slows enemy move speed by 150 for 1 second. So no, it's not exactly Ash of the Witch, but it's the closest we're going to get in V42, and it is something. Now, what about shielding cards? Cards such as Barrier of Will, Honor the Pure, and Bubble Tap. Now, these offered, a couple of them were group shields, and then Bubble Tap, of course, was a solo shield. But what about shielding cards in V42? Now, it was a little hard to find cards that gave the same effects as the ones I just showed, but I found a few that were similar. And the first we're going to look at is Malik's Grace. It's a shield link. Shield yourself and target ally for 15% of your max health for 3 seconds. So it's not a group shield, no, but it is a shield for yourself and a target ally. There is also Yomi Guardian. Now, this doesn't necessarily give you a shield, but what it does do is give an area defense. Nearby allied units gain 100% chance to block 50 basic damage for 8 seconds. That's actually pretty good, all things considered. 100% chance to block 50 damage for 8 seconds, and it is nearby allied, so it's everyone around in a radius. So no, it's not a shield, but it could be used kind of in the same way these older shield cards were used. We also have a couple gems that give some shield effects. The first we're going to look at is the Auto Shield. It is an intellect gem that goes in the first slot, so it's something you can get right off the rip. It gives you 100 shield for 4 seconds whenever you fall below 25% of your max health. It has a 90-second cooldown, so this is another self shield card, or gem, but it's a shield ability, it's a shield item. And finally we have the Armor gem, and that is a 7-slot Vitality gem. It gives you a shield after being out of combat for 10 seconds, maximum 125 shield, and it has a 10-second cooldown on it. So again, none of these are exactly like the older shield cards, but this is about as close as you're going to get in V42. Okay, now what about all of our old Blink cards? Blink Shot, Teleblink, and Stablink. For V42, we have Astral Leap as our first option, and that is pretty much Teleblink from V41 and before. So this is just the best way to get Blink right here. It's a knowledge card, and it teleports you forward 1,500 units. It's, like I said, it's exactly like Teleblink pretty much. We also have the option of Blitz Rush. Now this isn't a Blink, but it has an active called Executioner's Dash. Dash forward 1,000 units. Hero kills reset this card's cooldown. So again, it's not a Blink, doesn't have quite the distance that Astral Leap does, but it pretty much serves the same purpose. So those are your options in V42 in terms of Blink type cards. Now what about your old active mana regen cards like Blood Catalyst and Mending Bloom? In V42 we have Sprykin, and this is actually kind of like a mini phase card. The active is Restoration Link. You and target ally gain 60% of your missing health and mana over 10 seconds. So this is actually both a health and mana regen card. So this is similar to some of the regen cards pre-V42. We also have Supply Sergeant. Restore 125 mana to nearby allies. So this isn't a overtime regen, this is actually just a burst of 125 mana instantly restored to nearby allies. And finally we have Warlocks Burden. This is a death card, and the active is called Sacrificial Magic. Lose 3% of your max health and restore 2% of your max mana per second over 6 seconds, I believe. Looks like it. So I haven't actually used this card in game yet, so I'm not exactly sure, but this is a lot like Blood Catalyst. So now there are plenty of other mana regen cards out there. There's actually some really good options for mana regen from your cards and gems in V42. But these were just 3 that were kind of activated mana regen, or activated mana, kind of like the pre-V41 or pre-V42 cards were. Now how about old healing cards like Cast Converter, Overflowing Gifts, and Quenching Scales? These were especially viable on phase and just supports in general running Quenching Scales. These were actually really common cards right here. So in V42 we have Sprykin again. Just wanted to reiterate that this gives you and your target ally 60% of your missing health and mana back over 10 seconds. So this is a mana and health regen card. This is a great card. We also have Gates of Salvation. This is an order card that has a heal aura that is actually really good. You heal nearby allies for 225 health every 45 seconds. This is not an active, this is an aura around you wherever you go on the battlefield. So this is actually a really good option for a support to use. Another order card we have for healing is Malik's Prayer. It has an active called Rallying Shout. Heal nearby allies for 275 health. Healed allies gain 24 basic armor for 20 seconds. So this is another really good option for a active healing card. Okay, we also have a gem to look at, and no, this isn't a card with an active in it, but it does provide a good source of healing. and that is the Improved Health Regen gem. It is a slot 25 vitality gem, so this is pretty much going to be exclusively if you're building pretty tanky, but it gives healing for 0.2% max health per second. It increases by 0.2% every second while out of combat, stacks up to 6 times. Now personally, I don't feel like that's worth it, especially for a slot 25 gem. But I guess if you're building really tanky, that could translate into a good bit of health coming back to you. But I really don't feel it's worth it. But I just want to let you know that it is an option if you're looking for cards to replace some of those V41 healing cards. Okay, now what about Circlet of Health? This was an extremely common card for supports to pick up right off the rip and saw a lot of play before V42. Now in V42 we have Radiant Healer, and now this isn't quite the same as Circlet of Health, and you can get this right at the beginning of the game like you could with Circlet of Health, but it does give you better health regen. It has a healing aura that gives you and nearby allies 5 health regen. This is an order card. Now again, it's not immediately like Circlet of Health was, and yes, there are other options that provide really good healing, better healing than Circlet of Health would, but this was kind of the closest to an early game card that I could find that would possibly be similar to Circlet of Health. Next up we have Clearheart, and this was one of my favorite cards for both Rampage and Chimera at different points before V42, and with the new attack speed on Chimera and the increased health regen on Rampage that he's gotten with the update, a card like Clearheart would be pretty good to have, right? Well, in V42 we have another Clearheart. It is called Vital Waters. It is a growth card, and it has a passive of amplified healing. Increase all healing effects cast and received by 15%. So pretty much Clearheart. This is a really good card for both supports and someone like Rampage or Chimera with that extra health regen they're going to be getting. So again, almost a carbon copy of Clearheart. Okay, now what about Divine Shield? This was a card that actually was seen a good bit in the few months leading up to V42. What do we have now that offers something similar? In V42 we have another example of a gem taking a card's place with Divine Shield, and now we have Spell Shield. This is a slot 19 intellect gem, and it allows you to block the next enemy ability with a 55-second cooldown. So this is pretty much Divine Shield for V42 in the form of a gem. Next we have Hemorrhage, that high risk, high reward card pre-V42 that was actually pretty popular at times. In V42 you're going to be using Overclocked Droid. This is a chaos card with an active called Frenzy. Gain 32 attack speed and 150 move speed for 6 seconds. You take 15% additional damage while this effect is active. So it's pretty much Hemorrhage, just brought forward into V42 with a new name, new art, and all of that good stuff. But there you go, there's Hemorrhage for V42. Now, what about Hydroverser? This was one of my favorite cards. I know there was a lot of debate on whether or not it was worth it, and on some characters it was, some characters it wasn't, but on the right character, this card was amazing. So what can we look for in V42 that offers the same thing? Now we have Thaumaturge, and I hope I said that right. That is a weird name for a card. It is a knowledge card that is pretty much the equivalent of Hydroverser for V42. It's not exactly the same, but it's close. it has a couple of things going for it. It has Empowering Mana, which gains power equal to 1% max mana. So there's where it's kind of like Hydroverser. But it also has Overflow, where you gain 4 max mana whenever you deal damage to an enemy hero up to 300 max mana. Now that does have a 4-second cooldown every time you can get that 4 max mana added, but still a good card, good option. Instead of Hydroverser, you can run this, especially kind of mid-game range. You can throw that on, get you some extra mana, get that extra little bit of power. So again, not exactly the same, but it's a close equivalent for V42. Now, what about cards like Infinity Stream and Battle Mantra that kind of had those effects of trying to keep you topped off on your mana? For V42, we have the Mana Fountain gem. Here we go, yet another example of gems taking the place of pre-V42 cards in V42. So this is very interesting. Mana Fountain is an intellect stone for the 13 slot. You regen up to 10 mana per second based on missing mana. So it's a good option to kind of help keep you topped off as the game goes. Next up we have Nano Platinum, and this card didn't see a ton of play before V42, and I'm including it because even though it didn't have a ton of play, it was a good concept, it was a good thought, so I wanted to include what we have in V42 to kind of match this. And that is another gem called Healing Spells. It is the 13 slot for intellect, and it heals for 5% of ability damage dealt. So this is pretty much Nanoplasm here in V42. Now, what about the ever important Purity Sensor? In V42, we have Wicked Riposte, and this is a death card that has an active called Unstable Purification. Purify yourself and deal 75 ability damage to nearby enemies per negative effect that is removed. So this is actually a little bit better than Purity Sensor for yourself. Although yes, Purity Sensor worked for your allies as well, this one for yourself is pretty good because it also deals that 75 ability damage to other enemies nearby for every negative effect that's removed. So this is a good option to take the place of Purity Sensor in V42. Now you have a second option in V42 called Coursing Zephyr. This is a growth card with an active called Speedy Purification. Purify yourself and gain 250 move speed for 1.5 seconds. So again, we don't really have a team cleanser like we would with Purity Sensor, but we have a couple of good options for yourself that you can run that will pretty much do the same thing. How about Rally the Troops? This is a really good support card in pre-V42 times. Now we have Song of the Sentinel, and this isn't exactly like Rally the Troops, but it is similar in that it gives that attack speed buff. It has an inspiring aura that gives nearby allies 22 attack speed and 18 basic armor. So it's not a bad card at all, really, for a support to run. Really giving your team some good utility and somewhat similar to Rally the Troops. How about Shockwave? What do we have in V42 for that? And the answer is actually a few options. The first one we're looking at is Finder of Playthings. This is a death card that has an active called Unholy Gaze, and this is actually a really good card. Target enemy hero to reduce attack speed by 30 and move speed by 100 for 2.5 seconds. Now in V42, that seems like an eternity. In addition, you reveal all enemy heroes for 6 seconds. So really good option here with this card. Now another option you have is an order card called Crippling Glare. And this has an active called Hamstring. Reduce enemy move speed by 80%. Now the effect does fade, but it fades over 4 seconds. Again, 4 seconds is a long time in V42. So another really good option. Now we have a third option from a third affinity. There's some good options for slows in V42. Black Ice Routine. This is one of my favorite cards. Just great utility. This is a knowledge card with an active called Ice Blast. Deal 250 ability damage to nearby enemies and apply a 250 move speed slow for 3 seconds. That is huge, tremendous utility. And again, in V42, as fast as everything is, 3 seconds is a long time. So another great option here with Black Ice Routine. And the last one we're going to look at is Plague Lord Malik. This is a death card that gives a couple of really good things for your team. It is a Blight aura first of all, just nearby enemies have Blight. But here's where it's similar to Shockwave, and that is the move speed slow aura. Slow the movement speed of nearby enemy heroes by 120. That's pretty significant, especially for a frontliner or a tank. You can get in there, and this isn't even an active. It's nothing that has a cooldown. When you get close to people, they are not going to be able to run away. So those are all really good options of Shockwave now in V42 and kind of similar mechanics. Now, what about the extremely popular Stasis Gem? This card saw a ton of use, especially in those last few months leading up to V42. Now we have Stasis Rune. This is a knowledge card that stasis yourself for 2.5 seconds. It's pretty much exactly like Stasis Gem, just changed the name a little bit, moved it over into the knowledge affinity, and it's just a good conversion from pre-V42 to V42. But there's a second card that I want you to look at for this, and that is Domain of Stillness. This is an order card that has actually gotten a good bit of attention, and it's kind of a controversial card in that people are on the fence whether or not it is an actual viable card to use. But I can tell you, I've been on some teams who have used it, and I've had it used against us, and this can be extremely effective. It is a group stasis. You stasis yourself and all nearby heroes for 2.5 seconds. That is not just your team, it's the enemy team as well. You literally stasis everyone around you. So it's a little different than Stasis Gem was, but this card has loads of utility if used correctly. Next we have Stinger Boost, and this was one of my favorite cards before V42, and now we have the gem called Empowered Attacks, and this is a slot 25 intellect gem that gives you almost exactly Stinger Boost. After casting an ability, the next basic attack within 3 seconds deals 150 bonus ability damage. This has no cooldown on it. Really like this. I love Stinger Boost. I'm glad they transitioned this over into a gem format. But there's also another similar card to Stinger Boost that I want you to see, and that is Cryo Agent. It is a knowledge card that has a passive called Ice Burst. After using an ability, your next basic attack will deal 125 ability damage in an area and slow the move speed of targets hit by 150 for 1.5 seconds. So this actually could be really good on someone like Crunch, or really any frontline hero that you're going to be diving into people with and using multiple abilities while you're in there. You're going to be dealing an extra 125 damage in an area of effect around you, and you're going to be slowing all those people hit for 150 for 1.5 seconds, which is a pretty good amount of time in V42. So not exactly like Stinger Boost, but definitely worth mentioning. Really good option here. Now, what about Tainted Magic? This card was extremely popular and was seen in literally every role at one point or another, or all at the same time sometimes, especially over those last few months leading up to V42. Really popular card here. So what do we have now to match this? And the answer is another gem, Spellburn gem. This is a level 13 intellect gem, and it's not quite the same as Tainted Magic, but it's pretty much the same effect and kind of the same thing, just a little scaled down. Abilities deal bonus damage equal to 2% of enemies' current health over 3 seconds. So it's pretty much a scaled down version of Tainted Magic. But there's another item that I want you to see that is somewhat similar, and that is Amplification Engineer. This is a chaos card that has something called unstable spells on it. When casting an ability, damage nearby enemy heroes for 8% of their current health as ability damage. Now, this does say nearby enemy heroes, so you can't do like, Phase and Wraith used to be able to do with Tainted Magic and really reach up there and poke someone and get that good extra damage. But on someone like Crunch, or anyone who's going to be near the front line, it's actually a pretty good pickup right here that deals 8% instantly of their current health as ability damage just for casting abilities. So not exactly Tainted Magic, but yet again we see kind of a variation in V42 that provides a good option for that. Now we have Thermo Bond, and this was a great card, an absolute must for a lot of tanks and frontliners and junglers. And what do we have now to offset not having this great card anymore? And the answer is Unbroken Spirit. This is a growth card with a passive effect on it called Reactive Regeneration, and this is kind of a passive / active because it's just like Thermo Bond. You heal for 3% max health per second for 4 seconds after being hit by hard crowd control, and this effect can stack. Great card here. Good option if you used to run Thermo Bond. Pick up Unbroken Spirit. What about Thick Blood? This was a very viable card before V42. Now we don't really have an exact conversion for Thick Blood, but we do have Plague Lord Malik. This is a death card that we've already looked at once, but I just want to remind you of it again. It gives a Blight aura, and this basically means that nearby enemy heroes have Blight, as you see there. So a good pickup for a frontliner or a tank to run this and still be able to give that Blight effect. Now, what about Thunder Cleaver? This was a really hard one, guys, for me to find. Yeah, that was sarcasm. They literally didn't even change the name on this one for us. Thunder Cleaver is now a growth card, and it is exactly the same, and it actually has really good stats, though. 17 power and 22 basic armor, so there you go, guys. We get an easy one on this one. Thunder Cleaver is now Thunder Cleaver. And finally, the last card we're going to look at is Toxigel. And in V42, we have the Reflexive Purified Gem. This is a slot 19 Vitality Gem that purifies self after taking 300 damage. So there you go, there's pretty much Toxigel for V42. Well, that is it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you think. Did I miss some cards in V41 and before that you would like to see what they are now, or are there new cards in V42 that I may have missed that offer good transition to some of these older cards? So let me know what you think. If you like it, hit that like button. If you dislike it, hit the dislike. Give me a subscribe if you did enjoy this. Keep an eye on my channel. I've got a lot of content coming soon to help us all through this crazy transition into V42. But again, thank you so much for watching. Until next time, Shadow out.